today on Ag News Daily.
Farmers are different, right? But we share a lot of concerns. We share a lot of challenges. We share a lot of things of our daily basis. Politics is what mostly separates us, right? So it is completely different the way a farmer faces challenges in Africa than in America or in Europe.
Well, welcome back to the weekly edition of the Ag News Daily Show. We have a great episode put together today.
We do. We got a lot of information coming at you today.
That's right. And now the Cyclones are still working on their undefeated football season, so it's great all around. Unfortunately, Hurricane Helen brought massive amounts of rain to Tennessee and Ohio River valleys late last week. The storm also caused flooding and potential losses in many crops. This widespread devastation spans across the southeast from Florida to Georgia, through the Carolinas, up into Virginia and Tennessee. Rural farming communities have been hit hard, and officials are urging farmers to document their losses with photos to support state requests for federal disaster funding. In addition, they can file with the USDA's crop and private insurance products and submit their claims there as well. Unfortunately, Hurricane Helen struck the U.S. Southeast at the time where crops were maturing and being harvested. Georgia's Agricultural Commissioner Tyler Harper reported that the damage to pecan trees, poultry houses, flattened row crops, dairies, and food processing facilities were left without power. Over 100 poultry facilities were affected in Georgia alone, a significant impact considering that Georgia and North Carolina are the largest chicken-producing states. Georgia also ranks second in cotton production and leads in pecan production, much of which are significantly impacted. We talked to a farmer that comes up here to hunt pheasants, and unfortunately, yes, the entire cotton crop in his area has been devastated. The Georgia Cotton Commission reported that cotton producers are experiencing yield losses ranging from 35% to that complete crop loss that I just discussed. Most cotton fields had open bolls, and since cotton fiber quality is the highest the day that it opens, the rain from the storms degraded that fiber. Georgia's pecan crop. Is it pecan or pecan?
I was just thinking that.
Which is only weeks away from harvested, was severely impacted as it uprooted trees and limbs had been scattered everywhere, as well as nuts across the ground, making them difficult to recover. Ultimately, not a lot of great news so far to start off this episode, but we saw in Florida the Agricultural Commissioner Wilton Simpson described the damage in the Big Bend region as catastrophic, with cattle, field crops, nurseries, beehives, and other ag processing plants all affected. The Associated Press is estimating total damages between $15 and $26 billion. The USDA official told Bloomberg that the crop losses could trigger up to $7 billion in insurance payouts. Presidential disaster declarations have already been approved for Florida, North Carolina, and Virginia, allowing producers in those states to apply for USDA emergency loans and other assistance in those programs. So a lot going on according to what happened in the past for the storms. Looking ahead, we've got warmer than average weather here in the Midwest, and it is going to be quite breezy. So hopefully crops can stay standing.
And we did see potentially a disaster bill maybe brought to the Congress floor as well as we head into the lame duck session. But looking at crop progress, 21% of the nation's corn crop has been harvested, up 7% from last week. 64% of the crop is still rated good to excellent across the top 18 growing states, according to the latest crop progress report, dropping just 1% from last week. 26% of the soybean crop has been harvested, up from 13% last week, while 64% of soybeans are rated good to excellent, maintaining the same value as last week, but up from this time last year. Tanner, I think the big question coming out of the fields is certainly moisture levels right now. As of this morning, Friday, October 4th, a strike that began earlier this week has officially ceased. The International Longshoremen's Association and the U.S. Maritime Alliance have reached an agreement on wages that have allowed them to extend their current contract until January 15th of 2025, which will allow some additional time to negotiate the remaining issues. The strike that started, that's a mouthful, earlier this week, had some significant disruptions already to especially the containerized agricultural export market, which makes up just over 30% of U.S. waterborne agricultural exports by volume. On the import side, on the East Coast ports, they handle about 72% of all containerized agricultural imports and about 73% of all waterborne agricultural imports arriving in containers. The broader economic impact is significant. Even with just under a week of strikes, the estimated weekly economic impact related to waterborne agricultural imports is approximately $1.1 billion. In just a mere few days, cargo ships were already starting to stack up at ports, emphasizing the importance of reaching a deal. And so while the two groups now have until January 15th of 2025 to get a long-term contract in place, only time will tell how those negotiations will continue, Tanner. But I know a lot of folks across the ag industry, I was in North Dakota earlier this week, were asking about how this may play out.
Yeah, it'll be probably one of those. It's reported about multiple times as that negotiation process continues to go through. When you talk about strikes as a necessary tool for some of these negotiation factors, we're headed to Mexico. And in addition to the transportation challenges from our port strikes, Mexico's major railways have slowed to flow the grains into one of the United States' top export markets. Trade between the U.S. and Mexico is growing faster than Mexico's rail capacity. According to a letter sent by the federal officials, nearly 200 agricultural groups, the letter warned that shipping disruptions could have a ripple effect across the entire United States ag supply chain, which relies on a three-legged stool of transportation options, trucking, rail, and waterways to get product to Mexico. Rail backlog are now disrupting that export trade between the U.S. and Mexico. The government data shows that Mexico's imports of U.S. ag products increased by 27% in the first 7 months of 2024 compared to the previous year. That's partly due to the United States-Mexico-Canada Agreement, USMCA, boosting that trade relationship. A letter sent in late July by the agricultural groups to the federal officials highlighted the insufficient investment in Mexico's rail infrastructure. This has been leading to embargoes and congestion and delays in servicing the U.S. agricultural exports. Over $30 billion of U.S. agricultural products have been exported to Mexico the past year, with about two-thirds of the U.S. grain exports to Mexico transported by this rail system. We've talked about a lot of billions today.
We have.
Especially those billions of dollars affecting the agricultural sector. Mike Seifert, the president of the National Grain and Feed Association, told lawyers that the situation has left some U.S. grain sellers scrambling to find new buyers for their crops, while also struggling to get empty rail cars back from Mexico to fulfill shipments other places. However, the USDA's weekly grain transportation report shows some positive signs. For the week ending September 19th, grain inspected for export was up 40% from the previous week, 48% higher than the same week a year ago in 2023, and 66% above the 3-year 4-week average.
We're going to turn our attention now to the World Dairy Expo, which took place this week in Wisconsin. While we're here in the studio, our Ag News Daily team member Michelle Stangler is reporting from her home state of Wisconsin at the Dairy Expo. Cows, cheese, and many connections were made at the event. Let's hear more about what was happening in Madison, Wisconsin.
Last year at the World Dairy Expo, there were over 55,000 people. And this year, we saw a lot of people and we asked them the question, what is the value of coming to an event like this that has the dairy show, seminars, and a lot of learning, a lot of connections at one of the largest dairy-focused trade shows? Let's get into what they had to say.
What I see here on the World Dairy Expo is a lot of dairy people in the dairy industry that are from all over the world, from Australia, the Middle East, Europe, England, and so many countries, a lot of interest in the dairy industry and sharing the passion.
The best thing about World Dairy Expo is not only just the great cows, but it's the people. This is like coming home for all of us, and with professional dairy producers, we value having an opportunity to see our thousands of members, if they're allied industry partners or if it's our fellow dairy farmers.
Well, I think there's many different values. First of all, I think it's connection with people and cattle. The commercial exhibits are awesome. It brings up the latest technology and what's new in the product line. And dairy cattle is best in the world, and you get to see them on the colored shavings.
We really enjoy coming to World Dairy Expo because we think it's a great opportunity to showcase our new technology and all of our new products. Another reason we really enjoy coming here is because we just like to talk to the dairy producers, find out what their hot issues are on the farm, how we can help solve them. Maybe they're thinking about doing a new project. We like to talk to them about a lot of different things. At GIA, we have a lot of different products, so we can talk to them about milk quality, we can talk to them about their manure management needs, we can talk to them about new parlor products. So we really like that we have a wide array of things that we can help producers with.
I think this is such a fantastic show to come and meet so many dairy producers all in one place. For us, we're a small business that designs and sells women's workwear. So I think it's so great to come and meet the girls who are working in the barns every day, for them to get to touch and feel and try on our product for the first time.
And they all have a unique role here at the World Dairy Expo as well.
Started my day out today at a breakfast with the Rabo, the whole global research team, and it was great to see about what are some of the trends. Where is milk most likely to be made? Where are some of the losses and declines around the world of where they're not going to be producing as much milk? And for me, as a Wisconsin, but even moreover, a U.S. dairy farmer, I was very inspired to know that the U.S. dairy economy has a great amount of potential, and that we'll have an opportunity to continue to feed the world.
So this year, I was working last week helping the cattle trucks and trailers enter the grounds and get parked and unloaded. And this afternoon, I'll be out there helping the truck and trailers get back on the road to get home. And in the past, and my wife are involved with the school tours where they brought in 1,100 fourth graders from the area to have a chance to see agriculture and visit Expo.
Our benefit here is to reach out to dairymen from across the globe as we deal abroad and in North America, and meet up with them and show them our product. A good way to catch up on the new stuff and the new products, and educate people on our philosophies and on our product.
There's a lot of innovations happening here at World Dairy Expo. One of them is to feed calves with colostrum easier and faster with this backpack. I thought it was pretty cool, but there was a lot of coolness happening here at World Dairy Expo. You'll listen to some of those interviews upcoming in the next few weeks on Ag News Daily.
That looked like a fun event, Tanner. I'm hoping Michelle got some good cheese or ice cream at the event this week.
No, can we ship cheeseburger?
I think you can. I was thinking the same.
We'll have her ship some of those.
Absolutely. And you can look forward to some more conversations with an animal nutritionist and a fashion brand in some upcoming episodes here on Ag News Daily.
About like wearing cow spots?
It's a surprise. You'll just have to wait and see.
We do have an updated bird flu story. In Missouri, the Centers for Disease Control reported that 5 healthcare workers with mild respiratory symptoms were tested positive for exposure to the avian influenza H5N1 virus. These workers developed symptoms while treating a patient that was infected with H5N1, despite having no known contact with animals. This is raising concerns about the potential for the first documented human-to-human transmission of the virus. That's why this is making headlines when we look at that virus nationwide. 14 human infections of bird flu have been confirmed since last March, with all, except for this Missouri case, occurring among livestock workers. So about knowing how this was transmitted, the CDC is continuing to keep an eye on this. On the animal health front, the USDA reports that 213 dairy herds in 14 different U.S. states have confirmed cases of avian influenza infections in their dairy cows. Since April 2024, there have been detections of the H5 in 36 commercial flocks and 22 backyard flocks that were affecting a total of just under 19 million birds.
But surprisingly, World Dairy Expo went off without a hitch. So good to see folks there getting in and showing their dairy cattle. Well, this week we saw the Farm Bill officially expire on Monday, September 30th, and discussions about its renewal are expected to resume during the 5-week lame duck session when Congress returns after the elections on November 12th until December. Historically, it's not uncommon for the Farm Bill program to lapse, as seen in the lengthy negotiations that happened in 2002, 2008, and 2018. While some programs have shut down immediately, others will face impacts starting January 1st if a new bill is not passed. Some programs that have shut down immediately due to the expiration are numerous international programs, the bio-based markets programs and bioenergy program for advanced biofuels, several important animal health programs, programs for socially disadvantaged veteran, young, and beginning farmers, specialty crop block grant programs, and the National Organic Certification Cost Share Program. So like I said, a majority of programs will be good through the end of the year. However, some programs will remain unaffected by the Farm Bill expiration, such as crop insurance. The federal crop insurance program is permanently authorized and does not require reauthorization through a farm bill. Other programs, such as the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, otherwise known as SNAP, which accounts for a majority of the Farm Bill's spending, about 75%, continues to operate through appropriation bills and continuing resolutions. Currently, the government is functioning under a continuing resolution through December 20th, and additionally, the Inflation Reduction Act has extended 4 major conservation programs through fiscal year 2031. Dairy will be the first commodity affected by a lapse in the program, as the Dairy Margin Coverage Program ends on December 31st. Starting January 1st, dairy price support programs will also revert to policies established back in the 1940s under permanent law, which would require the USDA to guarantee producers between 50 and 90% of the parity price, potentially doubling government payments for commodities such as milk. For other crops, like the 2024 crop year, extends until 2025 harvest season, giving a bit more time to some of those programs. So all in all, a mixed bag for agriculture, and time will tell if anything gets done during that lame duck session.
Yeah, I know it's going to make buying farms and then property expansion for young farmers in those programs to be difficult to obtain in the fourth quarter until things get worked out. Farming across the globe is different, as every farmer is different. Everyone has their own story. We now get to hear from farmers from all parts of the world with their perspectives on the industry, in addition to what brought them to the Farm Progress Show in the state of Iowa this year. And some will stay in the country of Iowa. Let's dive into that interview and find out what we're talking about.
Super excited today to be joined by 3 farmers from different countries and all members of the Global Farmer Network, joined by Gabriel, Marcus, and Bill. Gabriel, you're from Uruguay. Marcus, a farmer from Germany, and Bill, a farmer here in the great country of Iowa, Bill, as you like to say. I'd love to start by learning a little bit more about each of your respective farms in your home countries. Gabriel, let's start with you because you're kind of a multi-country farmer, if you will.
Well, I am actually a farmer from Uruguay, third-generation farmer. I work in southwest Uruguay, which is the corn belt of Uruguay, even when we don't make that much corn as here. I started farming in 1998, first with my family and then by myself in 2010. And I basically do no-till crops, some livestock. I organize travel with farmers. I'm part of the Global Farmer Network. Well, I belong to several organizations. I enjoy these kind of things of sharing knowledge a lot.
Marcus, what about you?
Yeah, so I'm from Germany, northwestern part of Germany, very close to the border of the Netherlands. So my farm is for the area. A typical farm is winter wheat, winter barley, canola, and corn. In the last 15 years, I farm pigs. Also, that's livestock farming. That's normally for our area. And I farm also together with my father the last 15, 20 years. Now it starts, the next generation is farmed with me. But I'm a little bit more with more than 11 generation. So I'm the 12th generation, and they are sitting the 3rd generation.
The 12th generation. That is just so phenomenal. We just don't have that here in the United States to have history that goes back that far. But Bill, your history, your family history also goes back a few generations. Tell us a little bit more about your farming operation here in Nevada, Iowa.
Yeah, we're just north of Nevada. We have a feedlot. We're permitted for 5,200 head, and then we farm corn and soybeans. And I guess one of the greatest things that's happened probably in my career is the ethanol industry came in. And 20 years ago was part of a group that we founded Lincoln Way Energy. And so when you look at the feed, fuel, and fiber that we're able to produce in Story County and all around the state, because Iowa is one of the largest ethanol states, it's just amazing what's happened and be able to keep those dollars in our communities. And I guess the greatest thing that's happened with the Global Farmer Network, I do a lot of work in Washington, D.C., the past probably 20 years, but this has allowed me to go on a I say an international cruise to be able to talk about American agriculture and maybe help some of those countries that are having challenges like the Netherlands, or we go over and talk to Germany, how they farm and some of the issues and challenges they have, and how do we get in front of their governments and their policymakers to make their life a little easier.
Now you're all here together with the Global Farmer Network. What is that, and how do you connect with a lot of different people from across many different countries?
Well, I guess I'll let me go first. It is truly amazing to think that the three of us, well, I've known Gabriel for quite a while. He's been to my place a couple different times. But I always say that Gabriel's my brother from a different mother. And Marcus, we spent almost, we've been over there twice, and we've spent a week with him and his family and driving around the country and going to Agritechnia. And to be able to be on the board of directors now of the Global Farmer Network, it's allowed me to be part of that group that gets to look for those new individuals that we need to nominate and bring forward and get into this group and help vet them. And so this last summer, we had 208 applications to go through for 18 spots. And this is worldwide. And after you do something like this, and then I followed the group to Ireland to make sure that we did our job correctly, it was just amazing. We came away with 18 new relationships from all around the world.
It's really unique. The Global Farmer Network is a nonprofit. We have just over 270 members from, I think, 65 or 67 different countries. You three, of course, representing 3 of those. But it's just so phenomenal to see some of the stories. These are really kind of the cream of the crop farmers from each of their respective countries. Gabriel and Marcus, you guys have been members a little bit longer than Bill. Tell us about how you first came across the GFN and why did you decide to join this organization?
With me, it was maybe a little bit funny. So I was introduced to the Global Farm Network by farmers from the US, from guys from the US. So I start, I think, 10 years ago, now more. It was with the first iPhone, with Twitter. So I was the first farmer in Germany on Twitter. And because there were no farmers, so the only farmers on Twitter were US guys. And that was the reason why, get very easy with them connected. And from this group, someone introduced me to the Global Farm Network. And in all this time, I love to communicate, speak about farming, and I think that's it's the best way is that farmers speak about farming for the audience, not speaking over farmers. So and that works so great with the Global Farm Network because I was asked 2 years ago to speak at the European Parliament about what's happened when it comes through that we ban pesticides to export to different countries. And they thought, okay, you are now so many farmers, you know so many farmers from Africa, maybe you can explain what's happened to them. They say, hey, I'm a farmer from Germany. So you had to ask a farmer from Africa for that. So I connected to Mary, to our CEO from the Global Farm Network, and she organizes that someone comes over. And that's what I love with this Global Farm Network. It helps extremely to communicate, and also it's for every time a learning process for us. So that's it's opens your minds what's happened around the world on farming.
And one of the big things this organization has is that it is led by farmers, and it's a farmers organization. So it is the true voice of farmers speaking every time somebody representing the Global Farmer Network does. As you said, we are more than 270 farmers, more than 60 countries, 5 continents. I was nominated in 2012, so I'm the oldest of this group. And everything I've been doing is connecting to farmers, sharing knowledge, sharing information, and improving a lot my perspective of the things. And I think what I try to do is to share that to other farmers. That's why I'm doing this, of bringing farmers from Uruguay to North America, right? To see other farmers, to share the stories of other farmers, and to understand why do they do what they do. That is amazing.
Now, a farm here in the United States looks different than in Germany, and your farm and every farm looks different overall. So what have you learned from these over 200 connections you now have made because of the Global Farmer Network?
Farmers are different, right? But we share a lot of concerns. We share a lot of challenges. We share a lot of things of our daily basis. Politics is what mostly separates us, right? So it is completely different the way a farmer faces challenges in Africa than in America or in Europe, mostly because of politics, of the way the society sees what we do.
You know, one thing that's very fascinating to me is I feel like I'm sitting between two huge pillars here, because these two gentlemen are also Kleckner Award winners that is presented at the World Food Prize. So congratulations to you guys for what they've done around the world. But when you look at when we go to these larger events that Global Farmer Networks has, we range all the way from 0.3 of a hectare to a gentleman that farms 20,000 hectares. And when we sit at that table, it seems like a level playing field. We all have the same concerns, we all have the same challenges, and how do we sit with each other and gain the knowledge to take something back to our country to make it more viable and maybe set policy that we can live with? Because all these countries, like Gabriel says, it's all about politics right now. And how do we make sure that they have the opportunity to have the same tools in the toolbox as we do in the United States?
Yeah, that's one part. It's a toolbox, and also these. So I'm from Europe, so we have a big discussion with our politicians and especially with NGOs. So they had a big influence on especially on the green politicians, and I think we had to work together as farmers worldwide as these NGOs, because they work very well together. So, and then they talk about maybe this discussion in Europe about GVO, genetically modified GMOs, so it's in English. They talk about that in India we'll have a lot of farmers, they kill themselves because of bad experience with GMOs. So it was a few days in front of, I had a discussion with a politician, with one of the famous politicians from the Greens, and I texted to our WhatsApp group and asked the Indian farmers, hey, what's happened there? And they talk about in the media in Europe that there is a state who bans GMOs, and then very fast comes the answer back, hey, that's not true. Farmers, in the most part, love it. It's for them, it's a great effect, because it's less work and safe food. And the state where they're talking about, that's a state only producing flowers. So they are not interesting to have GMOs because they produce no crops. But the media in Germany and Europe talking different stuff about that. And that is with the Global Farm Network. Now you have people directly in these countries, and when you have a discussion with a politician or with a journalist, you can say, hey, if you don't believe me, no problem, I can give you the phone number. We can call him. You can ask him by himself. No problem, we can do that. And I think that's it's great to having this network and working so well together. And I think we had to do more in this direction to communicate.
And the Global Farmer Network really is about connecting members, like you said, Marcus, to be able to share your stories with each other, but also serving as a resource. If you get questions in the future you just maybe don't know how to answer, But a big part of it also is knowledge transfer. So the way you do things on your farm, will that work for my farm in a completely different country, a different location, a different climate and geography? And you've all had the opportunity to travel to a lot of Global Farmer Network member fellow farms across many different countries. Bill, I'm coming to you first, and then I'm going to go to Gabriel and Marcus. You mentioned earlier that you've kind of done this international tour where you've been traveling a lot lately. You've been visiting different Global Farmer Network member farms. Visiting Gabriel and Marcus's farm in particular, tell me about what that experience was like and what did you learn that really kind of opened your eyes to something different than farming here in the great country of Iowa?
Well, the one that comes to mind first is probably our first experience where we all got together in Argentina. But Bev Flatt from Bayer found out that I was going to go to the meeting, and so she asked if I would go with her and interview a Nuffield scholar. And so we started in Colombia. From there, we went to Chile and interviewed the person. Then we all ended up in Argentina, where the Global Farmer Network, there probably had to be 100 of us at that. So Gabriel was there, and he says, hey, while you're here, why don't you just jump in the pickup, and we'll drive back to Uruguay. So I jump in a pickup truck with 3 other Global Farmer Network individuals from around the world. We go to Uruguay, we spend time at Gabriel's farm, and then Bruce Rastetter found out I was down there. He says, you get to Sao Paulo. He says, I'll pick you up on the airplane and we'll go up and look at the ethanol industry and what's going on up there, and visited many feedlots and along the way. And the communications and the people that I met in the feed yards that have been to my place over the years was just amazing. And then Marcus has done the same thing. A year ago, we went to Agritechnia, and Marcus asked if we'd stay for a week, and we toured plants and we saw dairies, and we ate, broke bread with him at his family's home. I mean, it's just like family. GFN is family.
You really had a full circle moment, like you said, too, with seeing some of these people in other countries who have been to your farm. And you're probably thinking, whoa, that's, my network has just grown infinitely. Marcus and Gabriel hosting Bill and other GFN members, and also seeing some of their farms yourself, seeing Bill's farm a couple of times yourself. What's that done to change your perspective of how you farm in each of your respective countries?
Well, the time I hosted Bill and Judith and AD was the best 2 days of my life, right? Because we shared stories and the concerns they had, which I never even had in my mind because of different approaches of the same thing, right? So that is the great thing. It's like Bill said, this is family. And also coming to his farm, I also went to Germany and met. I didn't went to your farm, but we went to a field day in Germany. So seeing different farmers doing different things, it always gives you. I always like to say a huge perspective of farming and how we approach different things, and it's incredible. And it's one of the big things this organization has, which is. We like to call family. That's the best way of calling the Global Farmer Network.
Yeah, it was 2 years ago, the first time I was here at Farm Progress Show. So I would come over with 6 other guys from Germany, and we talk about it in front of that. Okay, in Europe, everybody talks about, so yeah, you're doing only monoculture with corn and soya beans, and that's bad for the soil. So that's what they talk about in Europe, especially in Germany, politicians. And then I organized this tour to here. It was after our meeting in Germany. Bill talks about, hey, come over, visit my farm. I do the planning and ask in our group, hey, I will be in this week in Iowa, maybe which farm we can visit. And it took 1.5 hours and had for every day farmers to visit. And then we stay there with the Global Farm Network farmer and their fields. We saw what's happened in the ground and the soil, and it's totally different what we expected. And we talked to so many about impact of politicians, impact from weather. So what's happened here more. After our trip, everybody from my group, from these 6 farmers, say, hey, great. So that was such a big experience. And they say, hey, this Global Farm Network, it's so nice. And one of these guys from Austria is now also a member from the Global Farm Network.
Now, at the time of this interview, we were at the Farm Progress Show in Iowa, so you're here. What were some eye-openers or some things that you are taking away from this trip here in the United States?
I think that's, for me, it's you are very open for technique. So when I saw 2 years ago these drones, so in Germany we talk a little bit about, so we have with our regulations problems, but here you can see the farmers are very interesting to having technique, having drones. So when I think about field view, so these things from the toolbox, you implement it very fast in agriculture, in farming, how you can use it. We in Germany, we fight more with our regulation that we can have that. So that's for me an eye-opener, and how many different other brands you have here, and maybe sometimes different seeders with different technique, what also could be interesting for our farms in Europe and Germany.
One thing I found awesome here is how are the farmers who are leading the investigation. We went to the Iowa State University 2 days ago, and all the time they kept saying us, we do this because farmers asked to investigate this, farmers asked to find new crops, farmers asked to see how an elevator works and how efficient a dryer is. It's always the farmers first in front of the investigation, which is awesome. In our countries, usually there is a massive university, or it is only one, but it's a big one, and they say, we are investigating this because it's the best for you. When usually it's the other way around, right? Usually technology starts first at the farm and then gets to the universities or education. Well, here is exactly that way, and I found that impressive.
You know, I've got to add to that, Judith DeVore, who is from the Netherlands, was in my class, and we just became very close. And I get a phone call from her 2 years ago saying, I'm coming to Iowa, and I want to spend a week and just see how associations work. And I know a lot of Americans are listening to this, but we should be so proud of all the associations that we have in this country, and how farmers band together and are part of these associations, whether it's pigs, cattle, corn, soybeans, ethanol. But we have voices in DAC, and we have voices that help protect what happens. She went back after meeting the Secretary of Ag and all of our different associations, and all of a sudden, about a year later, Nancy and I get a phone call, and Judith says, could you come over and help me host the Secretary of Ags of the Netherlands, because they have some real challenges going on there. And Nancy and I didn't even bat an eye. We jumped on an airplane and we went over and I milked cows for 4 days, and I've never done that in my life. But to be able to sit in front of their parliament and talk to their members and be able to explain how these things work. And the challenge they have is they have science-chasing policy, and that's just totally wrong in the world. It needs to be science, and then we develop the policy around it. So hopefully we can take those messages around.
I want to end with a really important question. And, I think we as farmers kind of get stuck in this own little lane of commodity prices are lower, things are more expensive. There's just lots of global challenges. But agriculture's future is very bright, I think you would each say. So as you look to the future of agriculture, that next generation, Marcus, your son's sitting here. He's come with you to the United States today. Hopefully he has an interest in taking over the family farm someday and being the 13th generation. But as each of you look at what's ahead for agriculture, what keeps getting you up in the morning? What's got you excited about what's yet to come?
So for me, I'm totally interested in farming. I love farming. Love to do stuff, get my hands in the ground. And I talk to my boys, hey, you can also be a farmer. You can also produce food for Germany, but maybe about our politician not in Germany. I think there's so much space for farming, and especially when you open your mind and building a great network, it's so much fun to do farming. So when you love this stuff, then it's not a job. Then it's more than a job. It's your life. You love it. So then it's very easy to stay up every morning very early.
Exactly the same. Passion is what leads us to what we do. I'm 100% convinced on that. My son is also he's finishing his university in agronomy, and he started doing that. I never told him to study. You can do whatever you want, right? And he entered to the agronomy university, and I asked him, why are you doing that? Just to know. And he said, because I look at you and I love what you do. So that, imagine, it was awesome. Passion leads us three and all the farmers in the world. It is a challenging work for sure, a long hour work for sure, but you ask a farmer and everybody's going to say the same. We love what we do.
You know, you can probably sum it up like this. Watch Paul Harvey on the 8th day. And the gift that God has given us is our family has come back to do what we did. And it truly is a gift from heaven, because who else is crazy enough to dig a little hole in the ground, put this round thing in it, and have faith that it's going to grow and produce? I mean, it's the most gratifying thing in the world. This is my 51st crop, and to have my sons come back and take over, and now they take it to the next level, because I've outgrown it. I guess I'm to the point to where, and I look at what our sons are doing between the drones and between all the technology that they've got, and you just sit back and smile and just let them go, because they're going to make it better, and they're going to do a great job at it.
Amen.
Amen.
How can our viewers and listeners get involved in the Global Farmer Network and find more information?
So, go to our website, and then you can apply there that you have an interest, or talk to us as farmers, as members, if you know one, and we will see what we can do.
Perfect. And that's globalfarmernetwork.org to be able to learn more about the organization and maybe become a member yourselves. Gabriel, Marcus, Bill, thank you so much for sharing your story and being on the podcast with us today.
Thank you.
Thank you, Delaney.
Well, Delaney, we keep our attention focused globally. Wide-scale missile attacks by Iran on Israel led to global nitrogen values quickly rising following the event. Nitrogen supplies have been tightening for some time now, according to Josh Linville with StoneX, and this was the final event to really accelerate the market's reaction. Linville also noted that although the price spikes like this are unusual in this instance, he views this as a supply-driven spike, which could mean a longer run driven by the bulls. So ultimately, supply and demand trying to even out there.
Well, the missile strikes also impacted other markets outside of our fertilizer markets, as those are continuing in the Middle East, causing concern for both energy and grains as well. Markets are fearful that Iran's oil infrastructure may be damaged by these ongoing strikes, or that they could impact supply at the very least. Iran's oil supplies account for approximately 4% of global oil output. I hadn't realized that number was quite so high, but certainly something the markets are continuing to watch. New crop corn saw 4 consecutive trading days with positive trade, also largely a reaction to the attacks in the Middle East. We also saw relatively strong export sales numbers this week, which helped bring support to the markets. And as we look at yield here as we head into a big stretch of harvest, StoneX reported this week in a new customer survey they are pegging the U.S. corn crop at a 184 bushel per acre, up from their 182 reflection last month. Soybean yields on their survey reflected 53.5 bushels per acre, up a half bushel from their previous month's survey. The numbers confirm for StoneX that this year's crop is certainly large, but they're saying markets have likely already priced in a large yield number such as this. They're also suggesting we're seeing major price support for November soybeans around the 10.45 mark on the board. In the wheat complex this week, both Russia and Australia have cut their production estimates, and Russia has gone as far as saying that a potential export ban may be once again in their future. Below average rainfall in the southern region of Australia, where a good deal of wheat is grown, has now led to expectations that we could see a decline in production anywhere from 6 to 9% across those southern regions. These figures were also reflected across their barley and canola production as well. So a lot of different market factors playing out there, and interesting to note that we've kind of been seeing this counter-seasonal rally here as we do head into harvest season.
It's certainly making producers think as they roll to the field as to what their marketing decisions would be. One other thing to think about, Delaney, is the farm rescue team, who typically goes into action helping those farmers and families in need, are also busy this fall. So if you've got a second, go check out what Farm Rescue has going on. And if you feel it in your hearts to give, please do so. It's one of those missions that you don't want to ever use, but if you need to use it, you're happy that it's there. But I enjoyed, again, being a part of the show in the middle of harvest season. Enjoy our listeners interacting with us and sharing what their harvest season looks like as well. So make sure you touch base with us on social media. Watch us on YouTube. What do you say, Delaney, for today?
Let's let him go.